everyone. Welcome to this, hopefully it should be a little bit fun presentation and not the technical deep dives that we do from time to time. We have been running the Opti project for 10 years in June this year, the summer. So we discussed a little bit and we decided, shouldn't we have some kind of panel session where we can answer some questions, and we can take some questions from you guys as well, and perhaps also give a little bit of a background to what's happening with Opti in the past. So today with me I have Jens Wiklander, Jerome Forestier, and Etienne Carrière. So like I said, a little bit of a history lesson, and there's a lot of names on the slides. I'm not going to mention all the names, but the thing is that Opti has been developed by a lot of people. Many people believe it's a small group like this who has been doing all the work, but that's not true. We have done a lot, but not all the work. So this is basically what I guess most people in this room believe that the history to Opti looks like, that we had some kind of launch in 2014. We have 10 years, so yeah, you can add it up. We end up with 2024 and so on. But there is actually things happening before that as well. This is what perhaps a few more people know about. So you can see that if we go back to 2010, ST Ericsson had a T solution. And they worked on that, and at some point the companies went different ways, and ST kept maintenance of the T solution. But we can go back even more than that. That's where everything started, at least from what we know. Jens and I, we were both working from the beginning here, so we were involved in the early, before 2010 as well. So Opti actually originated from something coming from Nokia. It was called Initial Secure Software. And that was a solution that we got, and we worked it quite heavily back at ST at that time, at ST Ericsson. And it was a solution that was used for the modem software, it was used for bootloaders, it was used on the Android side, and we had to create a couple of different tools for it as well. So that was when X-Test was created, and that was Jens who did that many years ago. Like I said, ST, they maintained the solution, and during this period as well, there was a global platform compliance done. So if you find that. And you can see a bunch of names here. There was a quite big team at ST Ericsson in Lund working with this, helping out, making this a T solution. And we had a team in Le Mans and Grenoble as well, with a lot of people working on it. And there were even some other people who has been involved from the universities and Ericsson and, yeah, like we said, Nokia and so on. So there is an old history to Opti as well. 2013, Linaro decided to form Security Working Group. And that was, like I mentioned, Dan, in parentheses, was TFA, was also launched. I think it was announced in Santa Clara in 2013. So, yeah. So, and one of the initial goals for Security Working Group was to basically open source some kind of T solution. So we were in discussions with different T vendors back then, Trustonic, NVIDIA, Google, and so on. But we ended up, like we said, we ended up working with ST, and that's what was become Opti. So Jens and I and the other two guys here on the picture, Pascal and Cedric, we spent roughly half a year trying to kind of remove things that we couldn't have, that was proprietary. Jens, you changed, added a new monitor code to it. We changed the build system and things like that. And then in the summer of 2014, it was ready to publish on GitHub. So June 12th, Pascal pressed the merge button, or submit button, and we had an open source solution. We had to give it a name as well, and we were thinking about OpenT sounds like a pretty good thing, but when we checked OpenT, .org or something. It was already taken by some kind of golf club or something. So we couldn't take that. And on GitHub, it was already taken by someone who was planning to do work in the similar area as we. So he came up with, let's call it Open Portable T instead. So that's the origin to OpT. And Hervé should actually have a lot of kudos to this. He was the guy who was pushing a lot of this at ST Ericsson and in Linaro to make this become something that we have today as an open source solution. Let's see here. And then if we move ahead a little bit more, we have 2 more gentlemen joining the project from a Linaro point of view. Both Jerome and Etienne joined back then. That's also roughly at the same time that we started doing the upstreaming of the T kernel framework and drivers that we had. And like we talked about this a moment ago, and Jens mentioned that this is actually the 3rd iteration that we had, because we had an initial version way back in the time, and then ST had written another version, and then we had to redo it again to make it upstream. So that's the history to the framework. And it took roughly 2 years and 16 or 17 patch revisions to get it in. So it takes some time to get things into the kernel sometimes. Xtest, everyone downloads it today and just use it. But initially that was actually not open source. We kept that just available to Linaro members. But at one point we decided, well, it's probably better for the ecosystem if we just make it open, and we did so as well in 2015. Then if we jump ahead a little bit more, Trusted Firmware had started, TFA and TFM already existed. Perhaps, I don't remember if Hafnium was before and so on, but TFA and TFM definitely existed. And then we decided, I think it was James King suggested, what about actually moving OpT to Trusted Firmware as well? And we had some discussions. We said, yeah, it's probably a good idea, because same kind of features and functionality, and they probably need to be a little bit co-developed as well and so on. So we made a move and decided to actually move it over to Trusted Firmware, where it's been since then. And Shabu and Matteo and other people was involved in that process, and it's been there since then. So it's a Trusted Firmware project today, but it's mainly people from Linaro who kind of do the day-to-day business, releases, security incidents, and merging patches and these kind of things. Then if we jump a few more years in the future, we had Rusika joining us, and she was leading the security working group for a year or 2. She basically had responsibility of overseeing what was going on with OpT back then. She also spent quite a bit of time of doing some kind of functional safety assessment of OpT. So we do have that in case you're interested. So I don't think you find it anywhere, but it's available. Nowadays, it's Elias who is leading it from the Edge team, and but it's still the people here who is the kind of the core people doing the actual work, so to say. So that's a little bit of kind of the history lesson I want to give, to just kind of some fun facts that people might not even be aware of. So now I want to jump into the panel discussion here. So yeah, oh, sorry, I had this one as well. I like the statistics. I think it's fun. So it's just to show a little bit what we have been able to achieve. So different amount of unique contributors, roughly 300. If you look at the domain names, Linaro.org, harm.com, and so on, it's more than 100. So quite a few different companies and people have contributed. We have roughly 40 maintainers. Ricard is here. I'm not sure, do we have more maintainers here in the room? I don't see anyone else. But yeah, there's quite a few. If you, by the way, submit a new platform, it's likely that we want you to become a maintainer as well. So yeah. We've done almost 40 releases for OpT. 4.2 was made, the last one. Closed, of course, a bunch of pull requests and issues, and thanks to Jerome, who tirelessly just merged everything for us, more or less. Security issues, 45 when I counted them a couple of weeks ago. We have a quite, I would say, good process how to deal with security issues today, developed together with first the firm and Dan here and so on.
I'm pleased to say you're beating TFA on that.
Well, we had a couple of reviews done by some companies, and they found a lot of them. And in some cases, we debated, is it a bug or is it a security issue? And we decided, well, some of them security issues and so on. We're a little bit stricter today with that, saying that you should probably, we want to see a demo that you can actually do an exploit, if we should accept it. Then I run through the numbers on OptiOS to see who are the people who commit most patches. And this was no surprise to me at all, but you have all three of them here. So these are the guys who kind of do the most of the work. Yeah. So, panel discussion. Jens, do you want to kind of, I've already introduced it a little bit, but something else you want to say? Nothing else? No.
Happy with Opti after 10 years?
Yeah, I think it's still interesting. There's always new things happening and issues and stuff.
You've also been involved. Actually, one of the slides, the picture Etienne as 2014 or something, but he's also been involved also back in the ST time. So what do you think? I mean, what changed for you?
Well, the fact that it's an open source project changed a lot and helps it better mature for sure, bring more functionalities, so and make it safer for sure. So I think it was really a good step that it became open source and there are that many contributors. So you just mentioned the three main contributors, but that's historical because we were there since quite a while. But of course, all contributors are just welcome. So we're just here to help, and they are also here to help us to make this project evolve. Yeah.
And even as we said, you were the top three contributors. We have a lot of people who might develop a TA for something, and that's not even visible in this kind of statistics. So there are a lot of other people doing a lot of work as well. So, but yeah. One thing that we have discussed a little bit as well. I mean, Opti, for how long will it be a relevant security project? We have a lot of things around the corner with CCA and trusted services and PKVM and other things like that. So, what do you believe? Is it Jens?
Who wants to answer that?
Jens.
I think it will continue to live on. I mean, it will find new places. It will find new places where it can be executed if a trust zone isn't available for some reason. It could just as well live in a realm or even in PKVM and so on.
What do you think, Jerome?
Yeah, I quite agree. I mean, it started off from a technology like how do we use Trust Zone, how do we make it easy to use. So there was all this global platform stuff, standardization and all that kind of stuff. But that's just the beginning. And then when people get used to using some APIs and some frameworks and some architectures, then no matter what the underlying technology is, if it provides the same security assurance, then you can still use it. So, I mean, it's always evolving, and I definitely see Opti being able to use other technology underneath, absolutely.
Yeah. So, like we said, this was open sourcing a product from scratch, and I guess that's new to all of us, at least. So, I mean, what are the takeaways? What did we actually learn by doing this?
That was a large mess to clean up. That's, I think, is the biggest thing, that everything has to be very nice. I mean, everywhere where you see something that can be fixed, it should be fixed.
Higher requirements.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I must say you've done a good job, because I've contributed to a few projects, open source project, before joining Linaro as an assignee. I was in Huawei at that time in 2014, and I had contributed a few patches to the Linux kernel, also to VLC media player, stuff like that. And when I joined the security working group and discovered the Opti source code, I mean, I feel at ease. It was clean, it was great, it was simple enough. Of course, there was all that kind of architecture trust zone that I didn't know very well, but I was assigned to cryptography at the first time, so it wasn't that hard to understand, and it was I mean it was really easy to work right from the scratch. So I appreciate that.
You got up to speed quite rapidly. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah,
like you said, you didn't really have the
absolutely.
experience working with this kind of
No.
technology or anything. So it's
No, and it was quite easy, to be honest.
so
Kudos.
So that's a good tie into one of the things that I have my cheat sheet here. So, but we discussed a little bit about how to get started with Opti. We, of course, bias here. We believe it's easy to get it up and running on a computer or something and try it out and develop TAs and so on. But we have heard from time to time that people think it's a little bit complicated. And I don't know, what do you guys think? Is it complicated? And if yes, should we do anything about it at the end?
Well, I guess porting a platform using all what Opti provides as a software component is pretty easy, because there is a full software implementation for all the features. Where it becomes more complex is when you want to route that to some platform security things, and this is where you have to be more careful. And of course, as we say in security, like devil is in the details. Yeah. Is that the expression? Yeah. So this is the harder part, because really porting a new platform that is, let's say, ARM-based, because we are ARM A-profile based, is pretty simple. And we have seen new platforms coming, and they just come and bring their platform with few, like 3-4 files in their platform directory, just bringing a configuration, some basic routines, and the platform is up and ready. But outside that, of course, you have to make sure that your security support for the platform is hardened, and this is where it's a bit more complex. And as well, we said Opti is part of a secure thing, so security is a process. It's not only some software or some one component. So Opti is a piece in the secure features of a platform. So I think it's still an easy piece to bring a new platform in.
Yeah. Well, I guess what
I
you're
hope
saying
it is, but maybe we're not well placed to answer that. And, it would be nice to have some feedbacks from the guys that just proposed those new platforms and integrated their new platform recently.
Yeah, I guess if you're a complete beginner and have never touched the code, it might be a little bit overwhelming to start with. But once you kind of have the base to start from, then it's probably easier to kind of start to play around with it and so on. But like you said, you still need to know what you're doing. It's if you use shared memory and don't think about it, then things can go wrong and so on. So
I remember porting new platforms in U-boot. Well, not in U-boot mainstream. I apologize for that. But and it was pretty simple in U-boot, because you needed, well, like if I remember, you need a console. You needed to set up some time measurements, I think, and it was pretty old. And then you have your platform booting with U-boot, and then you start adding features and making things more complex. And I see porting new platform in Opti about the same way. You only need very small, simple pieces to have the foundation for your platform. And I hope Opti thought that. It was named Open Portable, and I think it does the job as far as you are in an architecture that is already supported by Opti, of course.
Jens, you have done a lot of the low-level, complicated stuff. So what's your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's quite easy to get started. I mean, just a few commands and you have everything downloaded and can run and start poking around. I mean, you need to try to experiment with things to...
Yeah, maybe we can take this opportunity to recognize the value of QEMU for what we are doing, because I don't know if there are QEMU maintainers or contributors in this room, but I mean, I'm impressed how well it works and how powerful it is. It has its limitation, of course, but we can use it as a development environment and also for the CI. So it's a really useful tool. So kudos to the guys who work on QEMU.
Yeah, really. I fully agree with you. And for sharing just new features, how do we call that? Some like RFCs, just when you have the new feature you want to develop and get some feedback on it, just bring it to the QEMU platform and
proof of
everyone
concept.
can just try it, test it, see in the corner case, and it's really a good platform for that. Even if it's not really representative of what happens in a real product, but it's really convenient. A really good thing that you guys at Linaro started working on this QEMU setup so that it's shareable with all people.
I think that was the second platform we had up and running after the ST platform. So
It's actually quite good at creating or highlighting race conditions in QMO. I mean, surprisingly well.
Well, usually when someone reports a bug, we ask, can you reproduce it on QEMU? Can we try it with our own setup based on QEMU? And usually it works. When there's really a bug, we find it.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'm not surprised you're saying this. It's funny with Jens. I mean, in the office in the morning, he can say, "Oh, I have this really complicated problem. I don't know how to solve it." And 2 hours later, I solved it. It's always like that.
Sometimes.
Very often, I must say. So it's. Maybe this actually would be a little bit a question to you, Dan. I mean, we're thinking about, like, we have Opti, we have CCA, we have trusted services and so on. Is the secure side getting too complex? It's, I don't know. Anyone want to try to give an answer? Should we hand it to Dan?
I think it's a thing of dividing up. I mean, you create different units so you can separate.
Yeah.
So even if it's complicated, it's in separate units.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you always have abstraction layers. So the whole purpose of having a T and an API like Global Platform is to manipulate concepts that are easier to use for your purpose and abstract that from the underlying technology. So I mean, that's the purpose of any software middleware or stuff like that. So yeah, the technology is always complex because it has a reason to be. It provides solutions to complex problems, so it cannot be simple in itself.
So if we look a little bit about Opti as we use it today from a build system point of view and languages and so on, today it's based on the old boring make files. Should we do kconfig? Should we do something Gradle, Mason, you name it? Do we want to change it?
Maybe that's a question for me again, because I maintain the make files quite a lot. I mean, for the make files, I quite like make because it's simple, it's well understood, it works fine. It is probably less powerful than other tools that are maybe a bit more modern, but I think it serves its purpose, and there's no reason we should change it. However, for the config stuff, it's a bit of a different story because honestly, in Opti we have some kind of hard-coded just macros, really, and we have a set of rules how we set them to yes, to no, to default values, and so on. But we don't have anything that enforces, dependencies, yes, stuff like that. So it is a bit confusing sometimes, and to be honest, I've also worked like with U-boot, which has kconfig, with the Linux kernel, which has kconfig, and that could be a good thing to have a proper configuration tool. That being said, we mentioned this a few times. People have tried to do things, but it never went too well. I don't know why exactly, but that's probably something we would be ready to review and to evaluate. So if anyone wants to bring in kconfig, that's not a big no from the start, obviously.
Yeah, the problem when to introduce kconfig is that you need to solve everything at once. I mean, you can't take it in small steps.
Languages. I mean, we do have a little bit limited support for C++. It's Jerome, you did a little bit for that. Will we see full C++ support in the future?
So you're talking about C++, but in the TAs.
In the TA, in the TA context.
Something we didn't mention, Opti is a great firmware, but Opti is initially, let's say, was there to allow people to develop
No.
I shouldn't name any companies, but we've got suggestion of including Java and Python, so it's
In TAs, I hope.
Yeah, but this whole requirement of C++ in TAs, I think it's coming from people wanting to import code from libraries or stuff like that. So we have people that want to do some AI inferencing in the secure world. So they say, okay, let's bring in the whole stuff, the whole library. Oh, we have C++. By the way, does Opti support C++? Yeah, no, maybe that's not the way it should be done. Think about it, make it split it into smaller pieces, and then we can maybe do something, because Etienne is right. When you want to deal with secure side software, there's also the size of the trusted code base that is important. So you don't want to bring in too many things inside the secure one.
And too many bugs.
And too many bugs, yeah. So C++, it's an experimental feature. It kind of works, but unfortunately, Opti is using the Linux toolchain, the GCC Linux toolchain by default, and not a bare metal toolchain. That's a choice that was made on purpose for convenience from the beginning, because it was just good enough. But it also comes with its limitation, and that we are pulling some libraries and some implementation details from the Linux toolchains that we do not. I mean, it can change, and the C++ support especially brings a lot of stuff and requirements on the OS ABI. And so we try to catch up when GCC introduces something, and it's very difficult, and to the point that I think with the latest GCC, it doesn't work anymore. So it's pretty much in a situation where either we need to drop it or switch to a different toolchain, bare metal or specific to Opti, I don't know. I'm not a toolchain expert, so I've done what I could, but I've reached my limitation here.
Speaking about toolchain, we never really had a deep dive into whether we are using all the flags that we could use for beneficial purposes. We just picked a set of compiler flags once upon a time, and that's been there for ages.
I would say that in the mainline Opti, with the Opti build system and aside just the Opti OS repository, we use this GCC toolchain. But actually, there are people that do not use the toolchain we use. And I guess there are a lot of people building Opti from Yocto. In this case, they use the toolchain from Yocto. And with Yocto, you can select which toolchain you want, how you want to configure it. So I think it's pretty nice that we use some toolchains, other people use other toolchains, and Opti is built with several toolchains. So when there are issues, we see them at this time. And I remember when GCC came into some new version, there were steps like we found that many issues in Opti because the toolchain evolved and catch issues we had in the code. So it's nice that Opti can be used with several toolchains and not only the one we use in the mainline Opti manifest and build environment.
And by the way, we support LLVM too, Clang.
Yeah, we do. Yeah. Correct. Jens, anything you would like to add?
I think it would be interesting with more tools to do static analysis, so catching errors with like they have in the kernel.
So the obvious question from most people today: Rust.
Yeah, I was about to.
We do have. We should probably mention that there is some kind of, we call it almost experimental support for writing trust applications using Rust today. So we work with Baidu. On the Apache project, and they basically maintain the Rust side, TA side of Opti. But would we like to start introducing it as official support?
I guess developing trusted application in Rust is a pretty good idea, for sure. It's more adapted for secure development than C, unless you really master your C, and you guys do master C. So the Opti core is written in C, and I guess moving it to Rust will be quite painful. So maybe it will come someday. And Optis are a lot of low-level features which does not really fit with Rust. I'm quite newbie in Rust, so maybe I say some wrong things. But definitely for trusted application, Rust is a good language, I think.
And the Opti also supports quite constrained environments. So if you have not much memory, then perhaps it's even impossible to use Rust because it obviously has some more overhead.
Yeah. All right. We've been thinking about we do have a community. I mean, as we saw on one of the slides, there are quite a few people contributing and so on. But is it big enough so we need to have some kind of yearly gathering, meetup, Opti people? And should that be like when we have a Linaro Connect, carve out half a day or something? What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. I mean, the thing with open source is that you interact with a lot of people that you often don't meet. So if there's an opportunity to see them face to face, then it's even better. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, Jen?
Fully agree. I mean, there have been a lot of connects where there were a session about Opti and some, how did you call that, those session when we present the latest development? And
Lightning talks.
Lightning talks, yeah.
Lightnings, yes.
Yeah.
And maybe it's here a good place to make some advertisement on the LOC, which is a public meeting. So it's a online meeting on Zoom. It's I think it's published in the Trusted Firmware agenda, so anyone can come just and freely join the meeting. You don't have to register anywhere, I think. So it's public, it's open, and it's a good place for anyone just to hear people about what they do with Opti or the questions they have, and maybe at some point present some ideas or ask questions. So it's cool that it's a monthly meeting, if I'm right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So maybe we should do more advertisement about this. Maybe
I usually send out a mail a few days ahead on the mailing list.
I'm not sure the Opti mailing list is widely used.
No,
actually.
but at least.
I think the GitHub pages, like, well, the issues we use for not only issues, just for reporting and everything, is maybe more looked at by people.
Perhaps
I don't know.
That's more visible, yeah.
We should advertise more on this meeting because it's public, so it's nice that anybody can just join and participate if they will, or just hear if they will.
Right. Yeah.
Questions in the attendance?
Yeah, we can take some questions as well. So let's see here. We have, I think I see some people here in the audience working with PKVM and so on. With PKVM, you try to basically move some functionality out from secure side to a virtualized environment instead. And different opinions here from different people, but what do you think? Can you claim the same kind of security guarantees that you can with a standard T solution that we have today? What's your view on that? It's maybe a little bit difficult to ask, I know, but it's...
Yeah, pretty difficult question. It's about who ensures the security hardening of Opti itself. So whether you rely on your hypervisor or whether you prefer to rely on your secure monitor or whatever is its name, on your hypervisor on the secure side, so secure monitor and hypervisor. So that's, as we said, Opti is nice because it's an open implementation. It's not bug-free, but people contribute, so it well evolves, I guess. It matures, and it has clear defined APIs. So as you said, it could be hosted in various environments. But, I would say I like the trust zone thing because it dips, harden the software feature with the hardware straight, without relying on some more software stacks.
What do you think, Jens? Do you want to become just a doing development in a virtualized environment.
I suppose it could work, that also, but I mean, it's a trade-off. I mean, if you have trust zone, I'm sure it's more safe.
Jens, you like we said, you have been involved in a lot of things. I mean, what do you think is the most difficult thing that you have been doing over the years in Opti?
The most difficult thing is the pager, to getting that right. I think it took us actually a few years to iron out the last bugs.
But you're still fine-tuning it from time to time as well.
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, it's more like tuning. It's not crashes and stuff.
Yeah. All right. So I think we covered the things that I would like to discuss. So would like to give you the opportunity as well to ask us questions if you have any. So any questions from you guys? Don't be shy.
You mentioned the origins of Opti are in Nokia secure software, and I was just intrigued that, you know, at that time Nokia and ST Ericsson were, you know, strong competitors, but I think number 1 and 2 in the mobile phone market at that time. So how did ST Ericsson get a hold of that code? Or
I'm not sure if I know everything, and I'm not sure if I can say everything about it, but I do believe it's like sometimes there is need for making a business, and if you have a good argument and a good use case and so on, then you can get into agreement. So that it happened. I mean, it's they got this solution, and we could kind of customize it to our own needs. So yeah.
But it was a very small piece of software.
It was. So yeah. Ricardo?
So how do you see like on, you know, like attracting new contributors to the project? I know that, for example, you know, like one of the things that I saw that we've seen is, for example, you know, like that after I think Etienne started mostly, and then of course like there was an effort in Linaro to have like PKS11 as a trusted app, you know, like with the CKTEC and so on, and that of course like ended up like attracting quite a lot of people that, you know, like that were not necessarily interested on the core side of it, but ended up like contributing through a TA. So how do you guys like see, you know, like making the project a bit kind of, you know, like not only friendly for new developers, but how, you know, like how do you think on the ways that you could attract, you know, like new developers to the project?
Yeah, so I guess you refer to yeah, like you said, not only that we have a good stable core, you should actually have features that you can use as well, PKS11 and other things like that. So we do have a couple of trusted applications that you can use today, coming with the Git itself, so to say. But I guess we are open to kind of, every time we have a suggestion from someone, we always take a discussion. I mean, yeah, this makes sense, let's try to do it and so on. I don't know, do you have any comment to how we can attract other people?
I agree. Opti is more attractable. I don't know the word. Well, looks nicer if there are a lot of features on top of it. So Opti is there to allow people to develop their own features as trusted application, and it's cool that the trusted applications that are quite generic, and PKCS was one of the generic things that really has some interest in many people, because, well, Opti is like secure things. It works, it deals about cryptography, etc. But it's based on those global platforms that do not expose cryptographic services to the client, to the non-secure application. And this is where we thought that PKCS was interesting, because it was a clear defined API from the client side. So it was really a good place for a trusted application to develop this secure implementation of PKCS services. So it was a good, nice feature in Opti, because it's a generic thing. Maybe mentioning, you didn't talk about a lot about Android, because Opti used to support Android. Now it's Well, we're looking for maintainers for the Android part, but there is also a Android keymaster gatekeeper implementation as trusted application. And this is also something that I guess is valuable for people willing to use Opti with Android, because it's an Android generic interface and feature. It's interesting to have a common implementation for the service as an open source project. For sure. So if people have other ideas of generic trusted application they would like to port, I guess all the Opti contributors and maintainers will be happy to just to help.
Yes.
Question maybe would be whether the source code should be in the OptiOS or in an external repository. But even if the TA source is outside the OptiOS, it could be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing that
that's
we always have different opinions how that should be done. So it's
yeah, we try to encourage people to, if they report a bug, see if they can also supply the patch, and we help them as much as needed, or we can even do the whole thing if it turns out that it's too difficult.
Yeah. I mean, from a Linaro point of view, we shifted a little bit. I mean, the first couple of years we spent a lot of time to kind of make this a stable and mature product and so on. But we've seen the shift the last couple of years. It's more that, now we have something. How do we actually use this as yet another thing that we need to come up with an entire solution? So it becomes one piece that we actually need for the solution that we develop. So, but yeah, it's trying to kind of add new features and so on. But at the same time, we don't want to bloat it. We always have to keep an eye so that we don't just throw in whatever people want to have there. We try to kind of be a little bit careful and ask some critical questions. Do we need it, and why do we need it, and what are the consequences, and so on. But it's more than welcome to submit things.
Yeah, and as long as we have a maintainer to maintain the code and CI and everything, because it's not just about the code and the feature, it's about making it live and stay functional and not bit rot. That's an important thing.
So CI is definitely a key thing. I mean, if we can't test it, then we really don't want it, I would say. It's like, you did an experiment many years ago with secure UI, for example. And we had no real good way to test it. People weren't really asking for it, and it was basically us bit rotting. And we decided to just, now we remove it, and we get rid of it. So it's,
I think we have a question over there.
Sure. Guru.
So some SOC vendors, right, we have custom trusted execution environments. So when you have it that way, what would be the dependencies that Opti would impose to make sure that we could try Opti from kernel and above the framework?
Anyone want to give a try?
Sorry, I didn't.
So Guru said that there are other solutions that you might need to want, or correct me if I'm wrong, but you said that if you have another T solution and you want to kind of leverage change to Opti, or you want to build a TA coming from Opti, what do you need to think about? Something like that was the question. Yeah. So, I mean, we've had this discussion up a couple of times, and from a TA point of view, for good or bad reasons, it's global platform based. Some people believe it's a little bit complicated with the global platform APIs, and I kind of agree a little bit. But it's there. So if you at least follow the global platform APIs, it should be easy to switch between different solutions. You perhaps have to recompile it and so on. But
you will need to do that.
Yeah, but otherwise that should be pretty easy. For Opti itself, it's an entire core running by itself. So that is a bigger question, I suppose. Jens, do you have any comment to that?
At least it's quite easy to port Opti to new platforms. So if you want to try it out, I guess, as long as you don't need to interface with too much hardware, it should be quite quickly. If you have, for instance, not a too memory constrained environment and so on.
Yeah, I guess it really depends on what you need to port from your platform to bring the same feature in Opti that you may have in another T. I guess at some point it starts from some cryptographic operation drivers, mainly, because Opti is about that. There'll be a session on that at the end of the week. So I hope it helps. I guess it's the first part. And as you said, well, we're global platform based. So what we expect is if someone builds a global platform trusted application from some TE, then it's easily portable to Opti. Of course, when your trusted applications has some dependency on the platform itself and its specific features or support from the platform, specific service from the platform, this is where, well, for sure, you need to port this your platform service into the Opti and make an interface that is available to the TA. So we have means to help that. But well, it's still a work to do for sure.
What's the possible relation between TE and CCA? Will TE help CCA or used in different area?
I think I know how to answer this question.
I think they're serving different needs. There's a need for both. You know, CCA is about enabling confidential workloads in virtual machines, which is a different kind of workload than you're running in a TAA. So that there's plenty of room for both kinds of services on the same device. Although I guess how much Opti is used in a sort of cloud space is probably not as much, but in theory it could be used.
I would personally guess that we will see a little bit like an overlap. You know how it is. It always takes a long time to kind of get the product started, and it takes some time to get people using it and so on. And we saw that with Opti. I mean, I would say, guessing 2016, 17 was when we started kind of really started to take off the ground for us. And now it will probably be there for a couple of years and stay like that. At the same time, I guess CCA will start to kind of build up their user base and people start using it and so on. Yeah, that's what I'm guessing.
I'm not very, I'm a newbie also in CCA, but I guess Opti, or what we have in the trusted side and what we have in the CCA, serves different purposes, as you said, Dan. So I see rather Opti when you have a feature or a service that needs to access some secrets that is specific to the platform, whether CCA is more when you want to be sure that it's the right code that is executed and the right service that is executed, but not specifically tied to a secret of the platform. And the platform will only ensure that it's your right code that runs in your realm. So contradict me if I'm wrong, please do. But it's really two different worlds. Maybe at some point, some people could say that it could lack a relation between the realms and the trust zone part. If you would like a realm to benefit from a trusted services, but I guess it's beyond my own comprehension, I guess.
I think CCA does have an impact, though, on what's running in the secure world, particularly because if you are in a cloud setting and you want to allow tenants to run bare metal and run their own realms, one thing you need to do is completely deprivilege what's running in trust zone as much as possible. So one thing I know I'm going to be pushing for is to modularize and take as much out of trust zone as possible so that you can allow, for example, a situation in which you have a cloud bare metal machine and you let a customer bring their own Opti, right? That would be the utopia. But to actually achieve that, you have to go and refactor a lot of things. But I think we should be having those conversations about how do you deprivilege things from the platform so that you can have not just bare metal where it's, trust me, I'm running Opti underneath, but you have the rest of it, to you can run it all. There's a way to get, there's a ways to go from where we are to get to there, but I do think confidential compute will change that aspect of it.
We have a bit of that with the virtualization in secure world, with the secure Hill 2. Then Opti becomes sandboxed.
All right. I think we have time for one more question. Shabu.
Yeah. There was an announcement about Opti long-term stable. Any more details you can share on that?
You gave this tricky question as the last question. Yeah, I mean, we don't have any LTS today. That's the fact. But we have all the tools and the things that we need to start doing an LTS if we want to. We have fixes, tags, and things like that. So the day when we have someone saying, yeah, we really need one, we can basically start doing it. I think that's the short answer that I have to that. So, and since you asked about the cake, we don't have any cake. So, but I heard that the TFA team, who also celebrates 10 years, they will have a cake. So you should get to their session. So, all right, I think that's it. Thanks, Jens, Jerome, Etienne, and everyone who attended.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks to all.